Today we're reviewing the Asus ROG Tessen, a mobile snap and clip telescopic controller that gives a lot of vibes or is very reminiscent of the somewhat recent review of their full-size gamepad, which was their entrance into the pro controller world. Now if you caught that review, you're going to know pretty much in the back of your noggin how this one's going to play out, but don't just spoil it for any of the newcomers because there is a lot to talk about with this controller. Some parts or components that I really do like and some parts that I obviously do not. Without further ado, let's check out the ROG Tessen and also take a look at what the competitors are doing in this segment. A quick disclaimer to my audience, the Stallions and Stallionettes, this controller was sent for review, but this is going to be an honest, comprehensive review. I haven't been paid to say or not say anything about this controller, and Asus does not get an early preview, so if there's any cons, shortcomings, or areas of improvement, you're going to hear about it. So these companies make better products over time. As for the packaging, included accessories on the ROG Tessen. Black and red is of course the theme color of ROG, the Republic of Gamers. ROG, a Republic of Gamers. They make motherboards, they make laptops, they make computer peripherals, including controllers. And not your standard missionary gamepads either, but those premium or pro controllers that all the kids like. So when I'm walking down the aisles of Best Buy and I see a $180 controller over my shoulder, I get a little curious what this new Titan brings to the pro controller world. And they've always got this super gamerific graphic or pattern plastered on there. Interesting note, I've actually never seen a box like this. It kind of opens up like a lotus flower presenting itself to you. Cool presentation. And again, I've never seen a controller like this. Now this is very compact, so the box itself is very small. And also, as far as mobile controllers go, this is even more compact than most mobile controllers, which are already aimed towards portability. And that is because of this foldable design. You can slip this into a backpack or laptop bag very easily. Oh my god. Oh man, that brings sadness to my heart. And there's also this foam padding, which is very nice. You have it on both the bottom and the top, or technically side, then this swivels out for ease of use. Also a little pull tab right here, which will get you into your accessories, which are going to be some rubber pads for mounting different size cell phones without damage. Get all that crap out of there. Jesus Christ, they just keep coming. And then underneath is going to be your documentation with a QR code, which says scan to obtain multi-language quick start guide. It's actually two pieces of documentation. This one's going to be kind of a quick start guide with that QR code on the front. And this is your warranty card, which I just doesn't need to be this big. Screw the other piece of documentation, that huge warranty guide, which is so big because Asus makes so many other products, things like computer components and peripherals for your desk. And now they're getting into the controller game. The Armory Crate app is the phone version, not the PC version, which you're probably used to for like motherboard control. And that's going to be this one for American users. And then for Chinese users, you're going to use this sucker right over here. But this quick start guide has everything you need to get up and running with your controller. Also, interesting note, that cardboard box, which opened up real slick like, is actually a stand or dock for this controller. Nothing against that approach. It just seems pretty ghetto to be using the box as a dock, so I'm not going to be doing that. Now, build quality wise, the only secure, solid, thunky feeling mechanism is going to be the center section, which is the foldable portion, and this feels very nice. Weight and resistance, it also snaps to a couple of predetermined steps. There, and then there, fully folded. But the actual plastics used on the entire controller, specifically the palm grips where you're going to be holding this thing constantly, feel incredibly cheap. And I'm not just talking about this being light, but the plastics actually feeling incredibly flimsy, like this would not survive a drop onto any surface. And even furthermore than durability in case of a drop, it just doesn't feel good by any means. Toyish and cheap, which is unfortunate because there are mobile snap and clip controllers like the Scuff Nomad, and if you want something a little bigger, the G8 Galileo from GameSir, which don't feel toyish by any means and are really dabbling into full-size controller territory with mobile controllers. This, not so much. And it's really sad to immediately dislike this controller putting hands on it, considering the last controller I tried from Asus ROG, which was their first entry into the controller world, I greatly disliked because it didn't offer the customer anything for the price, which was astronomical for the feature set offered. I was really hoping that this would be some kind of a breakthrough controller, but for God's sake, the USB-C port doesn't even swivel, which any good mobile snap and clip telescopic style controller worth its salt or sodium is going to have this swivel, maybe even remove and swap for a Thunderbolt option so it's compatible with multiple variants of phones. Oh man, I haven't even gotten all the buttons yet. Kind of fun to hold it like this, like a corkscrew wine opener or something. Feels extremely cheap. Also, cosmetically, this little LED RGB strip just doesn't look good when it's off, and guess what? It's not going to look that great when it's on either, but you can disable it to save battery life. Cosmetically, this is also my least favorite snap and clip that I've tested recently, as they go a little bit too gaudy with this gamerific pattern in comparison to something like the Scuff Nomad, which is very classy, understated, just black. Now, interestingly enough, I'm actually a pretty big fan of both the D-pad and the face buttons, more so the face buttons than the D-pad, but I do not like the feeling of the thumbsticks or analog sticks whatsoever. That in combination with the surface plastics, which your hand is constantly going to be making contact with, those two aspects alone make this a non-recommend when the competitors are kicking so much ass in this segment. But we've got to talk on the D-pad and face buttons because they are pretty gosh darn good. It's just unfortunate that the housing that holds it all together, the plastics, the body, doesn't feel very good at all. Surface plastics on the D-pad feel good. It is a little bit louder than I'd like to hear, and also the type of sound, it's a hollow clacky click, not a nice secure deep mechanical tactile little clickaroony. It's more of like a little toy. Check this out. But in all honesty, the actuation force is damn near perfect. So my biggest complaint here is actually going to be the sound. Not only the volume, but also the type of sound, that real hollow, clacky, not very confidence-inducing sound. The face or action buttons are incredibly cramped and close together, which you expect on a mobile snap and clip telescopic style controller like this, but these are even closer together than I expected. To give them a little praise where praise is due, instead of being glossy, these are flat, so they shouldn't collect fingerprints or micro scratches, and they are mechanical, good strength to actuate them, so you're not going to get any false actuations. A little bit of side-to-side play or wiggle, but nothing too out of the ordinary. But despite being mechanical, these feel rather toyish. Switches themselves, they just don't feel the best. The bumpers were actually one of my favorite components in gameplay because not only can you hit them with the tip of your finger, but also extending out with the meat of your index finger. It's the same amount of force here, that's perfect. I wish there was a little bit of dots or stippling up here for grip, just some slick plastic, but the bumpers felt good, didn't sound obnoxiously loud. And then moving right onto the triggers, same exact plastics used, good linear range of motion, so if you're using this for racing games, you'll have no issue there. The bumper and trigger suite was honestly some of my favorite components on this controller. I also was a huge fan of the rear buttons. I wasn't sure how they were going to perform at first just by looking at them because they are so much different than any other snap and clip style controller. Cosmetically, they look cool, and most importantly, they function well. Now, they are a little bit further from the rear shell than I'd like to see, but just holding the controller how I want to, they are directly underneath my middle fingers. They are dead silent, and they have the most smooth, buttery actuation. I like these quite a goddamn bit. As far as the thumbsticks or analog sticks, they feel incredibly toyish with these caps, which provide a good amount of grip, but they're also really small. There is anti-friction rings, and you will glide along some smooth plastic when you're at full lock. Clicking in the sticks feels pretty tight and secure. You do get a little bit less travel or range of motion than you're used to, and most of its competitors have either Hall Effect thumbstick modules or swappable caps or some kind of sauciness in the thumbstick segment, which this simply doesn't, putting this a little bit behind. Two cons that absolutely need mentioned is going to be the limited compatibility here only being Android, considering the current and last generation iPhones have finally moved to USB-C, what it always should have been, not that lightning bolt bullshit. But I could not get this controller up and running on my iPhone 15 Pro, but luckily I have like an $80, it was $80 back in the Civil War, so now it probably goes for like 20 bucks. Little Android that can barely run anything, so I didn't even include any B-roll of me playing any mobile games on it, but I was able to get the controller working with that, but it was not by any means a great gaming experience just because of the device that I was on. And a lot of its competitors will work with both iPhone and Android as long as they use USB-C, or the G8 Plus from GameSir uses Bluetooth, so it'll actually connect to consoles and PC, opening up even more compatibility. And the next con, which kind of, I guess, is one big thing, and that is the fact that that QR code that says scan this for the North American audience, that is only for the Google Play app. That doesn't exist for the iPhone platform. So we're going to finish up this controller review, the verdict section, if you will, the pros, cons, and verdict, by taking a look at the manufacturer's listing for this controller and going over each key feature and how it actually played out IRL. Unique foldable design. I will say the track feels quite secure. In fact, probably second place to every telescopic controller that I've tested, right behind the Scuff Nomad, which feels like it has has a metal oiled track. It's very secure, and it just glides on that thing with a perfect amount of resistance. Compatible with phone cases. I did really like all those rubber included accessories, so no matter what phone you have, you can pop in those little niblets. Aluminum rear paddles, like I mentioned during the rear button section. These are some of my favorites. They looked a little bit wonky, so I didn't know how they were going to perform. They performed like an absolute beast, and they are programmable on the fly. Great that you do not need an application, but if you do want a little bit more customization, you do have the Armory Crate app. Speaking of which, just like Armory Crate for PC, the full-blown motherboard software, it's okay. It's like a 6 out of 10. Now, 18 isn't a very high number in comparison to some of the huge TDP outputs we see from handheld PCs, like the Steam Deck, ROG Ally, and Lenovo Legion Go. However, this should be enough no matter what game you're playing, even if it's a AAA intensive title like Resident Evil, which has been showcased as an iPhone demo now. You should still be gaining a charge even when you're playing with the brightness and volume up. Console grade controls, this is where I beg to differ. Everything from the palm grips, so the plastics used, and the sizing of the face buttons didn't really scream full-size console controller, which some of the competitors like the G8 Galileo do. But right here though, mechanical switches on the face buttons and D-pad, I tried to mix the two words together. They both did feel really good actuation wise, the switches, but the body didn't feel very good, and the size and spacing of those little face buttons didn't feel great. Advanced customization options and the ROG button. You do have the software suite Armory Crate, and with that ROG button, that is how you were going to bind the rear buttons on the fly and do things like adjust your lighting without the app. Speaking of the lighting, I think it should have just been ditched, considering this is already a kind of a cheap budget controller. They could have cut costs even further, and a lot of gamers are just going to disable that anyway. And since this device does not have PC support as of current, or I couldn't get it up and running with any of my software programs, I was unable to measure this advertised 500 hertz polling rate. Yeah, that's an admirable number, sure. So if you want a mobile controller that has the same footprint, the same compact size as the Tessen, it's kind of a crappy name, but Tessen, the Scuff Nomad would get my recommendation, as it's just, yeah, I'm not going to talk about it here. I have a full review, but same size, better controller. And if you want a larger mobile controller, something that feels almost like a full-size Xbox or PlayStation gamepad, absolutely check out what is still my personal favorite mobile controller, the GameSir G8 Galileo, which there's now a new version of that has Bluetooth and an onboard battery, so you can use it on consoles and PC. It's a real slapper. But the Tessen is linked in the description below. Drop in the comments section below what you think of this thing, and I will see you Stallions and Stallionettes tomorrow. Peace. If you enjoyed the video, liking it helps it to get seen by more gamers, so this information will reach and assist them as well. Much like the back of the TV, I've got plugs for all of my socials down there in the description below. And your wallet will greatly thank you if you check the description, because there are exclusive discounts on a ton of products, including controllers, KontrolFreeks, keyboards, mouse pads, clothes, and energy drinks. And keep in mind that you, the viewer, keep this channel running. The more Stallions and Stallionettes trotting around the stable, the better, so mollywop that subscribe button like it owes you money, and we'll have the same amount of fun tomorrow.